In 1999, a 34-year-old communications and telemarketing CEO named Daniel Snyder purchased the Washington Redskins for $800 million, following the death of beloved owner Jack Kent Cooke. At the time, he became the youngest owner in the league. In the 24 years that Dan Snyder owned Washington's football team, which used 3 different names under his tenure, the franchise was rocked by scandal, plagued by ineptitude, and even had the sparsely packed stands collapse under his watch. Now, he's on the way out, having sold the team for an ungodly amount of money. Let's go ahead and let the door slam him in the ass while he leaves. This is the complete, sad, and pathetic story of Dan Snyder, the worst owner in the NFL.
You know, the culture is actually damn good.
School's out for summer, and that means it's time to plan that summer vacation. What's that? You don't have any spare time because of meal prep and cooking? That's where Factor comes in. With Factor, healthy, delicious meals are delivered right to your door with no prep and no mess. And oh yeah, minus that whole cooking part. My favorite thing is that these meals are filling and delicious, around 550 calories or less. And now you can try Protein Plus meals for an added 30 grams of protein more per serving. Factor also offers 34 different meals per week and 45 plus add-on options like smoothies, juices, and snacks. And with Factor, you get a complete dietary system, whether it's keto, calorie smart, chef's choice, protein plus, vegan or veggie. It's all here. It's all easy. So after this video, head to factor75.com or click the link below and use code 5points50 to get 50% off your first Factor box. Again, that's factor75.com from the link below and use code 5points50 to get 50% off your first box. So where did Dan Snyder come from? Born in Maryland, Snyder grew up a Skins fan and witnessed their glory years. And like most rich businessmen in America, he started a company with money from his dad. His company sold billboards in doctor's offices, yes, really, and did telemarketing, which focused on immigrants. It grew and grew until he was a billionaire. When Dan Snyder purchased the Redskins, the team was fresh off a 6-10 season in 1998. Joe Gibbs, who had led the team to 3 Super Bowl victories in the span of a decade, had left the team 6 years earlier, and Washington, a once proud unit, had been conspicuously absent from the playoffs for 6 seasons in a row. But there was reason for hope. Alongside a new owner, the team spent its first-round draft pick on Georgia cornerback Champ Bailey. Running back Stephen Davis was primed for a 1,400-yard season, and quarterback Brad Johnson was stretching the field to the tune of 4,000 yards. The team even defeated the Detroit Lions in the wild card round, Barry Sanders' final game, but fell 14-13 to the ascendant Tampa Bay Buccaneers. In 2000, Snyder made some high-profile acquisitions, signing future Hall of Famers Bruce Smith and Deion Sanders to lucrative contracts that signaled a win-now mentality. Unfortunately, these moves did not yield the desired results, quite the reverse, in fact, leading to the firing of head coach Norv Turner and a failure to make the playoffs. At this time, Dan Snyder also sold his company for billions, and at age 36, he suddenly found himself with a lot of time on his stubby little hands. His first business move? Snyder made the short-sighted decision to charge fans $10 for training camp attendance, drawing criticism and marking the first time a team made their fans open their wallet for a practice. We talking about practice. This decision set a precedent for Snyder's focus on financial gains rather than prioritizing fan engagement and goodwill, and for his penchant to be involved in the team's marketing and business affairs, and everything else. On the field, Snyder's overbearing nature was on full display when it came to his relationship with the team's head coaches. The great Marty Schottenheimer lasted just a single season in our nation's capital, an unresolvable clash with Snyder and their management styles. The legendary Joe Gibbs couldn't recapture his magic the second time around. Jim Zorn, well, I'm not sure what Jim Zorn was doing as the head coach of anything.
Hip hip hooray! Hip hip hooray! Hip hip hooray!
The guy was about as motivating as a commercial urging you to get a colonoscopy. Then, 2-time Super Bowl winner Mike Shanahan was tasked with making something out of a team whose resources had been wasted on Albert Haynesworth, a guy who couldn't complete the fitness test in training camp, or get himself up off the turf, for that matter. I will say this, no matter who was coaching the team, the level of playoff success has been very consistent, which is to say, there's been none of it for 17 years. The franchise's last playoff victory under Snyder's ownership came in 2005 when they won the NFC wildcard game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Skins, as they were known back then, carted out an elder Mark Brunell, who went 7 for 15 for 41 yards and 1 INT, but got a TD from Clinton Portis, the man they traded away Champ Bailey for, who would go on to be enshrined in Canton. Since that game, the team has struggled to achieve any sort of consistency on the field, leading to a sense of frustration among fans and a decline in attendance. There were certainly a couple of points when Washington seemed like they were building a contender. The Skins made the playoffs in 2007 following the death of safety Sean Taylor. RG3's rookie season yielded a playoff berth in 2012, only to be undone by the turf, and the You Like That team got a home playoff game in 2015, but they were no match for Aaron Rodgers. That's how it feels to be a Commanders/name redacted fan. Just when you thought you were out of it, they pull you back in. Well, for about a season until something goes wrong. Robert Griffin III's injuries were horribly mismanaged, the team was unwilling to commit to Kirk Cousins, or they just went off the board and signed a gym teacher like Carson Wentz. Don't be naive. These are all moves that involve Snyder directly, as his meddling never ended during his tenure as owner. Snyder's handling of the team's financial matters has also been a source of controversy. During the Great Recession, the team sued 125 fans who tried to back out of season ticket contracts due to financial hardships. The team won judgments totaling $2 million against the fans, which further strained the relationship between the organization and its supporters. Keep in mind, these were some of the best fans in football through the 70s, 80s, and 90s. Generations of Washington fans went to games dressed as the Hogs, and those decades of goodwill were gradually being washed away by some dipshit in glasses. The owner's strained relationship with the fan base was further exacerbated by his response to criticism. In 2009, Snyder banned spectators from bringing signs or banners critical of him and a front office executive into FedEx Field. Soft like a wet baby's ass. This move was eventually lifted, but reflected Snyder's thin-skinned response to negative feedback, and a massive indicator of him being a bitch. Snyder's litigious tendencies were also on display in 2011 when he sued the Washington City paper for $1 million, alleging defamation and an anti-Semitic depiction of him in an article. Trust me, Dan, you being a ginormous asshole has nothing to do with your religion. You're just a dick. The controversy surrounding Snyder extended beyond the field of play. In 2018, allegations of sexual harassment and mistreatment of cheerleaders began to surface, one by one. Several former cheerleaders revealed that they were subjected to harassment and were pimped out to the team's male sponsors during a calendar photo shoot in Costa Rica. While an internal investigation led to changes in the cheerleading program, including its eventual replacement with a co-ed dance team, the damage to the team's reputation was already done. You know, whatever reputation that they had left. The team's name and logo controversy also cast a shadow over Snyder's ownership. Despite waves of mounting pressure that would build and eventually dissipate, Snyder initially refused to change the team's names, stating unequivocally that it would never happen. Spoiler alert, it would happen. A couple of times, actually. The team eventually announced a rebranding effort in the summer of 2020 while the country was facing a reckoning in terms of race relations. Because we were all locked in our houses and all we could think about was racism. Snyder ended up distancing himself from the controversial name and logo, not necessarily because he had an epiphany or a come to Jesus moment, but because the walls had finally closed in on him. Allegedly, several sponsors and minority owners pressured him to change the name, and he folded like a lawn chair. Thus, they were now the Washington football team, the laziest and most uninspiring name change in rebranding history. Snyder's ownership has been marred by multiple allegations of misconduct and improprieties. In 2021, emails between former Buccaneers coach John Gruden and Bruce Allen, then the president of the Washington team, revealed racist and misogynistic comments. You know, iconic lines like anti-football. And no, that was not a description of Dan Snyder. It was in reference to the one guy you don't want to piss off, Roger Goodell, whom I love and would never ever criticize for fear of him sending me to a gulag. These revelations lifted from company emails further sullied the image of both Snyder and the franchise. Though some allege that they were the ones that leaked the email, which I don't know if that makes any sense at all. More financial misconduct allegations have also plagued Snyder. Federal prosecutors in Virginia launched an investigation into allegations of financial improprieties stemming from a $55 million loan taken without the knowledge of his partners. The investigation, coupled with other inquiries and lawsuits related to financial matters, has painted Snyder as not just a shitty guy with a dark void where his moral compass should be, but a bona fide con man who would rather wait out on his yacht than to face justice on solid land in the United States. Which he literally did. He actually went out on his yacht and avoided subpoenas and court appearances masked under the guise that he was avoiding COVID. It was also alleged that he kept 2 separate books and hid money from the other NFL owners, and that a season ticket waiting list for fans wanting to buy tickets was a complete fallacy designed to create an illusion of exclusivity. The culmination of these controversies and a lack of success on the field has led to widespread calls for Dan Snyder's removal as the team's owner. Even fellow owners like Jim Irsay of the Indianapolis Colts expressed support for removing Snyder from his position. Hey yo, when Jim Irsay, a guy that got a DUI while on a bender that would impress Charlie Sheen, is publicly saying you've gone too far, trust me, it's time to call it quits. And so, begrudgingly, like MC Hammer selling his gold toilet, Snyder finally put the team up for sale and waited for a buyer. Josh Harris, the owner of the Philadelphia 76ers and New Jersey Devils, has agreed in principle to buy the Washington Commanders for a record-breaking $6 billion. While this sale marks Snyder's reign coming to an end, there's still no guarantee that the Commanders are in good hands, although they certainly can't be in worse hands. Washington's FedEx Field was only at 85% capacity in 2022, while the rest of the NFL filled their stadium to roughly 92% capacity. The legacy of Dan Snyder can be seen in the empty seats, the collapsing stands, and the turf that is about as safe as the Western Front in World War I. Harris will likely have to lead the push for a new stadium in Washington. He'll have to get fans back on board with an unpopular rebrand. He'll likely have to pay all of Dan Snyder's lawsuits. And he'll have to earn the trust of a fan base that's been jerked around by their football team since The Sopranos was in its first season on HBO. As the saga surrounding Dan Snyder's ownership of the Washington Redskins /football team /Commanders comes to an unceremonious end, one thing is clear. His tenure will be remembered for controversy, mismanagement, and a tumultuous relationship with fans and the wider football community. And a bunch of L's on the football field. Oh, there have been bad owners in football. None of them has embarrassed their team and their fans to the extent that Dan Snyder has. So, farewell, Dan. But as a Giants fan, I thought you were doing a pretty good job.
We're honored to carry on the tradition that was created by Jack Kent Cooke and his son John Cooke of winning.
How do we fix this thing? I said, well, I could fix that. I could fix it. You know, I could fix a business. I could fix issues.
Yeah, I was asked by every newspaper, what's the priority? And it's winning. It's that simple. That is the #1 priority.